My colleague Vuyo Mvoko is live at the IEC Results Operation Centre, that's in Tshwane. He will be broadcasting from there tonight as we build up to the elections taking place tomorrow. Very good evening to you, Vuyo. I do understand that you'll be speaking to Terry Tselane in just a bit of a moment, but is that energy there? Can you feel that we're on the cusp of an important moment in South Africa's democracy tomorrow?
Indeed, Criselda, the place is a hive of activity. Lots of people here. You can actually tell that the election is literally hours away. So everyone, the broadcasters, the officials, to my left, it's the officials of the IEC who are already starting to count the special votes that have been cast over the weekend. And to my right are the party agents, the people who are representing their respective political parties. They will be taking a look at everything. They are the eyes and the ears of their respective political parties. Behind me is, of course, the stage where in about an hour's time or so, the IEC will be addressing us from this podium, and that is where they'll be giving a report of how the weekend went, and of course talk about the state and level of readiness for tomorrow's big day. As you correctly pointed out, I am, of course, with Terry Tselane of the Institute of Election Management Services. But Terry, good evening. Thanks very much for your time. It must be nerve-wracking. You are a former commissioner of the IEC. Hours before, the voting is about to start, what goes on in the minds of the people who are carrying this responsibility of overseeing this election?
Well, thank you very much for having me. The first thing that a person starts feeling around this period, it's anxiety about the process, whether things will go according to plan. A lot of planning has gone into the preparations for the elections. We've got more than 220,000 electoral staff. You've got so many ballot papers that have got to be distributed to the right places. And you never really know how things will turn out until it really happens. So you would be a little bit anxious about that. But the fortunate thing is that because special votes happen 2 days before the actual day, it provides the Electoral Commission with an opportunity and a platform to test its systems, and it's almost like a dry run in preparations for the elections.
And of course, you also dependent on other people to actually help. The IEC depends on a lot of people to make the election actually work. Technologically, you have, other people you have to rely on, virtually a number of things.
Absolutely. The electoral process is a joint responsibility. It is a joint responsibility between the Electoral Commission and quite a number of other players. Of course, firstly, the political parties, they've got a major responsibility in terms of ensuring that the environment within which the elections take place is conducive for free and fair elections. But like as you correctly pointed out, you also have got quite a number of service providers, including those who print the ballot papers, other technical people in the IT department. All these people have got to work together to make sure that the election day is successful.
Speaking of political parties, I'm trying to imagine what it must feel like for the commission itself when you have politicians like the federal chairperson of the Democratic Alliance who comes out of from her special vote and says things like, we have no confidence in the IEC, for an organization that has actually carried itself well over the years.
Well, sometimes I'm not too sure whether political leaders do read the commitment that they make in terms of the code of conduct. Because in terms of the code of conduct, the political parties and political leaders commit themselves to having to assure their supporters about the impartiality of the Commission. Of course, this does not mean that if the Commission does things that are untoward, then they cannot be challenged. The courts are always available. The Electoral Court is always available as a platform that the political leaders or political parties can use to deal with whatever issues that they see as transgressions on the part of the Electoral Commission.
Now, as an outsider looking in, I mean, you're no longer a commissioner of the IEC. What can you say about, how, because this has been the shortest, period within which to organize an election. How do you think this one fares, compared to elections that have been, that we had before?
Well, the Commission has had quite a number of interruptions in its preparations. Most of those interruptions are well known. The fact that they had to commission a study by Justice Moseneke to try to establish as to whether conditions existed for free and fair elections under the COVID conditions. And then after that, they went to the Constitutional Court, and then of course they didn't get what they wanted, which was the postponement of the elections. Now, these have had an effect, obviously, on the preparation on the part of the IEC in terms of its preparations. However, remember that the elections take place every 5 years. So in general, immediately when you finish with this election, you start preparing for the next election. So even though there have been those interruptions, the truth of the matter is that they knew all along that the elections would take place in 5 years' time. There are other things that they've already put in place to make sure that the elections are successful. It is only those few things that could have been interrupted by the issues that I've mentioned that would have affected them slightly. But in general, their preparations started a long time ago.
And I mean, COVID has come with its own challenges. I mean, over the weekend, people were talking about pens. Perhaps people should bring their own pens, because we know how this virus spreads. So these things add to, what is a daunting task, already.
Absolutely. I mean, COVID has been an unknown factor. It has affected the preparations. You will recall that when this thing started, some of us actually called for the elections to be postponed, and then we also argued that the conditions did not exist. And I think the Commission listened to some of this, because they were also dealing with something that they did not know, and that's why they had to commission Justice Moseneke to deal with this particular aspect, to exploit, to see to what extent indeed conditions existed. And then after that, now having to go to the Constitutional Court, it has had some kind of effect on their preparations.
But interestingly, I mean, even though people have said quite a lot of things, no one has actually, well, except for your Action SA and a couple of other incidents, this period has gone pretty much without incident, really. No major issues up until now. Absolutely.
I mean, apart from those minor hiccups, as well as the service delivery protests that we have seen, which is actually expected every time when you've got elections, because quite a number of communities see this period as a period within which they should actually raise their issues. They see the election as providing them with a platform to raise whatever issues that they are disaffected by. There have been those kind of interruptions, but in general, I think there have not been major issues in relation to these elections.
And I must say, I mean, credit to the Commission for having cool heads, and I mean, I can only imagine what must be going through Simon Mabolo's head. I mean, together, of course, with the rest of his team, when, for example, you have people like landlords who renege on agreements. Here are people you had an agreement with that we're going to use your venue, and then at the last minute they say, oops, no, sorry, you can't come here. But they've maintained like cool-headedness. They were like, okay, they're taking it in their stride. They're not going to institute any legal action, focusing on the task at hand.
Absolutely, there's a lot of anxiety that arises as a result of some of these hiccups, but the fact that the Commission has actually been able to carry their responsibilities with dignity thus far, and they've not had any difficulties. I think it's a clear demonstration of the fact that they've got confidence in the capacity of the electoral staff to be able to do the thing that they're supposed to do. Remember that over the years the Commission has established a pool of has established and developed a pool of electoral expertise, and it is this 220,000 people that they will be relying on to deliver on the day of the elections.
And Pretoria, just from there are things that happen outside, of things that we don't see. Any particular things that are happening right now that we and the rest of the public out there may not know? Like hours before, we go to the polls. What happens behind the scenes?
Well, by now, the Commission would have now received the reports of some of the hiccups that have been experienced in the process. And then because they would have received this, they would be sitting, trying to refine their system, trying to make sure that tomorrow nothing really goes wrong. So they are looking largely on the reports that they are receiving from the ground, from the provincial electoral officers, from the municipal electoral officers, and using that report to refine the systems to make sure that tomorrow goes on smoothly.
And what holds things together? In other words, who are the key people who make sure that the communication happens at the right time, the machinery is well oiled, the systems are, there's resilience built into the system hours before we actually start voting?
Yeah, obviously now I think everybody has been trained. You are relying on the 22,000 electoral staff that you have appointed, the presiding officer. You are hoping that the presiding officer will get their staff together, that they will do the right thing. There is no more opportunity now to talk to those people. They're supposed to know everything that they're supposed to be doing, and then therefore they just have to make sure that the materials arrive at the voting station on time, and that it is the right materials. They check every little thing. So you're relying largely on the communication of the presiding officers with their staff. It's few hours before the election day, and then therefore you are dependent completely on the presiding officers.
On the ground, trained, well trained, as you say. Terry Tselane, who is of course the former commissioner of the IEC. He is now of course the chairperson, executive chairperson of the Institute of Elections Management. Now, we are going to be here, and you're going to hear from me a little later on. For now, though, we're going to touch base with some of our colleagues around the country, starting in Limpopo, where my colleague Lutendo is going to give you a sense of what is going on in that part of the country. Lutendo? Okay, Lutendo is not ready yet. Now, if you've just joined us earlier, I was just taking you through the setup here behind me, being the podium from where the IEC will be addressing us at about 6 o'clock, and that's when they'll be giving us a sense of how things went yesterday and today, but also throw forward to tomorrow, talk about the state and level of readiness for tomorrow's big day. To my left are the officials of the IEC. These are the people who have a sense of what has been going on yesterday and today. They are busy counting. They're getting all the information. The information gets fed through here, and then they process it. To this other side are, of course, the party agents, and these are the people who are representing representing their respective political parties. They liaise with the IEC. They, liaise with their offices to make sure that from the party's side everything is going smoothly, but also that they get to brief their principals about the goings on here at the IEC Resolve Centre. Now, on the other side are all the broadcasters who, of course, have this view of this hall from where they are broadcasting. I think my colleague Lutendo is ready now, and let's take you to Limpopo, where he is going to give us a sense of the state and level of preparedness in that province.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for this particular time. I'm here today. We've spoken a lot about the state of readiness here in the province, the state of security, just ahead of these elections that will be starting tomorrow. But, in essence, we've been speaking, of course, as outsiders. But now I'd like to bring in the head of IEC in the province, that Nkaru Mateta, who joins me now. Ms. Mateta, thank you so much for your time. We very much appreciate it. We know you're very busy. Let's talk about the special vote. How is it going from yesterday?
Well, it is going on very well. We are one of the provinces that had the highest number of special votes. The 3,022 voting stations needed to operate between yesterday and today. We needed to visit more than 75,000 homes. By last night, we were done 30,000. At the moment, we are waiting for the last tally to tell us how many we've visited. Unfortunately, in some cases, we cannot find people in their homes, and that is very, very disappointing, because some of the people were not even aware that people had applied on their behalf. In some cases, people simply went shopping when they had applied for special vote. And IEC resources are wasted by people who apply for home visit, and then they are not in their homes to exercise that right to vote. However, it's not a lost cause, because they can come on tomorrow, on Monday, to participate in the elections. Okay.
Tomorrow we kickstart the elections, 2021 local government election. How ready are you?
Well, as the IEC, we are ready. In fact, the 2 days of special vote were a test to check whether our systems will function properly. So tomorrow at 7 o'clock, when the stations open, all our systems, all the voting materials will be at the voting station. So the first voter, if they arrive at 10 to 7, at 7 o'clock, will be ready to process the first voter. And you will be aware that we are introducing a new device. It's called a voter management device. This is a state-of-the-art device that will assist us to quickly process voters. And when we are sitting here at the Results Centre, we will be able to see what is happening at each and every voting station. And by the way, Limpopo has 3,186 voting stations.
That talks to the issue of the turnout, electoral turnout.
Yes.
What are you expecting?
Well, we expect that we will improve from what we had in previous years. In 2016, we were not impressed, because almost half of people who were registered in Limpopo did not turn up on election day. So this time around, because we've got so many political parties, 69 political parties that are contesting in Limpopo, as well as 231 independent candidates. We are hopeful that given those numbers of parties and independents, a lot of people will come out and really participate in this election. So our target is around 60-70% voter turnout, and we hope we'll achieve that.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much. You can hear she's a little bit worried about the turnout, but of course she's also optimistic that this time around people will come out. As we now link to my colleague, Griselda.
Thanks there, Lutendo, with, of course, a status report on what is happening in that province, the province of Limpopo. We'll continue, of course, to give you a sense of what is going on around the country. For now, though, I'm going to hand back to Griselda back at base.